Hi, welcome to Courageous Journeys. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Did you know that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month? If not, don't worry, you're not alone. The first annual Sexual Assault Awareness Month began in 2001. And while we have come a long way, we still have so far to go. Each year, I try to do something to bring awareness to this issue. I try to create an opportunity for survivors to get help, get support, share their story, to help end the shame and stigma of what it means to be a survivor. There are so many misconceptions about what it means. There are so many myths around sexual assault and what it means to be a survivor. And these videos, this channel, has always been about trying to bring awareness to the possibility of healing and ending the shame by letting every one of us who are survivors know that we're not alone, and by educating everybody around what is real and what is myth, and to provide hope in understanding that when we recognize that we're not alone, we feel safer to come forward and speak our truth and get the help that survivors need in order to be able to heal. This year for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I shared stories of courageous survivors who either allowed me to interview them or wrote their stories and allowed me to share them. It's been an amazing month with a variety of stories from people from different backgrounds, male, female, different experiences, different paths for their journey and where they are now. But what we all have in common, and I say we because I have been there, what we all have in common is fear, uncertainty, and shame. Because we buy into those myths. We believe them and we hold on to them tight. In doing that, we hold on to responsibility. And that's where so much of the shame that we experience lives and grows. We cannot heal if we do not speak that thing that creates so much shame. It's truly impossible. We have to be able to share that. And that can look a lot of different ways. It can be shared in a public way, of course, but that can bring on another set of problems for people oftentimes because it's incredibly vulnerable. So that's not where I would recommend that people start. Just sharing with one person. Maybe that person is a therapist, and that's a perfectly good place to start. And most people, even though they can't imagine ever sharing with anybody beyond a therapist, they end up sharing with more people. Because when you share your story and you begin to do the healing that you deserve, you release some of that shame. And when you release some of that shame, you feel safer in sharing your story with others as well. And it truly is in sharing our story, being witnessed in sharing our story, that so much healing happens. Because when you don't tell, when you hold on to that secrecy, that breeds the shame because you never have an opportunity to see the possibility that what you're holding on to is not yours to hold. In sharing your truth and being able to put it out there, even just to one person, when that person can be with you in that moment and accept what you're saying and believe what you're saying and not do something that further stigmatizes or shames you, significant healing happens in that moment. But sharing your story is not easy. Maybe you were even threatened with having to stay quiet. Whether you were threatened or not, almost everybody, well, I would actually say probably everybody, is really significantly afraid to share their story the first time, especially because you don't know what's going to happen. But in order for us to live in a world where we are believed, where we can share our story and have somebody respond in the way that we deserve, instead of saying something that is inappropriate, or even while trying to be supportive ends up being hurtful, we have to be able to speak more. Sharing with a friend is a great place to start, with somebody who has shown you, maybe in very small ways, that they are trustworthy. Maybe they've shared things with you. If they've been open with you and you've not heard them speak about other people in negative ways or not tell you secrets that others have told them, those are good indicators of who you might be able to share your story with. And that doesn't mean that you have to share your entire story. Sometimes even just being able to say, I was sexually abused or I was sexually assaulted can go a really, really long way. So as Sexual Assault Awareness Month comes to a close for 2019, I'd like you to really think about what it means for us as survivors, what it means for the communities and the society that we live in, to really get a full picture of what it means to be a survivor, to experience sexual abuse or assault. When that happens, the shame and stigma are decreased. The more that we speak up and share the messiness of what that means in terms of struggle, the more other people who aren't survivors, are willing to talk about it as well. And it won't be until then that we end sexual abuse and assault. So even far beyond the end of April, it's important to have these conversations. So I would encourage you to think about, who can you share your story with? And maybe you've shared it with quite a few people, but is there somebody else that you might share with? Not that you have to, but just check in with yourself. Is there a reason that you're not sharing? Is there something that you're afraid of? And it doesn't mean that you just need to jump in with both feet and tell that person, but really check in with yourself as to why. Because there's healing that can happen in that too. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me watching this video, and thank you for joining me on this mission to end the shame and stigma of what it means to be a survivor. It is not our shame. It never has been. And it's time that we release the shame that we have carried for far, far too long. Thank you for joining me.